What I would like to do for just a minute is I want you, it's so funny, we always say we're grateful for the community and everything else, but I want to do a little intention. So I want everybody to just sit in your space and just close your eyes. Just take a deep breath and ground yourself in gratitude. Just ground yourself in the fact that you are here alive and that you are making art. And it's such a grateful experience to be creative and to be with other people and to be in such a delightful community. And so as you sit here, know that hopefully this conversation will lead you and open up new doors, God bless you, to things in your life. So just take one more deep breath. Breathe in. 1, 2, 3. And breathe out. 3, 2, 1. All right. Come back to the room. Okay. I think this is such an incredible community. And when Brian reached out to me, he read an article that I had in a publication. I didn't know much about CCYoung, and ironically, I lived at right up the street behind Keller's Hamburgers for 13 years. So I was very close, very close. So I didn't know much about the community, but I came down here, and when I saw the art, and he gifted me to see all the art laid out that was submitted, and all the variety, it just moves me so much. So I just wanted to start this whole thing with gratitude. Because to me, making art is a truly spiritual experience. So I'm going to tell you a little bit about my journey, but I really don't want to tell you too much about my journey. So I really like to focus on other people. All right. So what I'd like to tell you is back in the year 2000, I had an ad agency down in Deep Ellum. And it was right there on the ground floor across from Fair Park. And I started having lower back problems. And I did all sorts of graphic design. I learned Illustrator, Photoshop, all the graphic programs. And I decided that I needed to branch out, and I couldn't be sitting at a desk. I needed to do something where I could move around, make art and move. So I started painting in 2000, knowing that it is a long journey. It is definitely a long journey in painting. But I would bring an easel in, and believe it or not, in the middle of the day while my staff was working, I would get up and I'd go in there and I'd paint something for 30 minutes, and I'd enjoy that presence of painting. Well, years went by, and what I did, and so I want to tell you this little story about where I came up with this book. Y'all have a book on your seat. I would go to Santa Fe, and I took a retreat. Once a year, I took a retreat in Santa Fe with a woman named Virginia Cobb. Has anybody heard of her? Virginia traveled the country for many years, and at the time when I was taking the retreat, she was in her 70s. And she would invite us out to Santa Fe. She lived in North Santa Fe, and we would drive out past the mountains every day, and she would greet us at the door and give us an assignment. And Virginia was very laid back. She wasn't a teacher that literally very much told you what to do. So for example, one day you would come in and she would say, today's project, start with black, start with white, paint. And then that was it. And so you're sitting there going, okay. But this day, she said something that I hope moves you. Because have you ever had that experience where you heard someone tells you something, one little sentence, and it really literally changes the whole course of your life? That you look on it and you look back and go, that is a pivotal moment in my life when things changed. And what she said to us is, she said, today, I want you to watch your process. And I was like, what? What do you mean, watch my process? What? I just throw the stuff down. I just paint, and I take brushes, and I spill the paint, and I move, and she said, no, I want you to watch how you work. How do you work? That phrase really moved me. How do you work? Have you thought about it? Have you ever learned to watch yourself as an artist when you're painting, when you're doing fiber art, when you're making pottery? How do you do it? How do you approach the art studio? It's a really good question. And so I started watching. How do I do it? How do I do it? And you know what I noticed? Sometimes I had the most incredible experience. I'd go into the art studio and I felt this power flowing through me, and I did these great pieces. And then other times I'd go into the studio, and this is a true story. I literally punched a hole through a canvas with my paintbrush. It just, everything was going against me. Everything just, it didn't feel right, and I was frustrated, and I was expecting too much. So what happened was I realized that we can control how we approach the canvas. Whether we approach it with positivity or negativity. So in the book, and we're not going to go through that today, we're just going to go on to one lesson. But in the book, each chapter of the book is a lesson on how do you get into that state of flow. How many people in here, by a raise of hands, can say, I know what you're talking about. I know when time just passes, I forget who I am. I'm doing something that seems to be greater than me. Show of hands, how many have had that experience? It's magical, isn't it? It's magical. So that is, to me, spiritual. It's the basis of being spirit. And we're going to come back to, I'm going to put a bookmark there. Okay, we'll put a little bookmark on that. But I want to tell you my story because I want to be vulnerable here and be open with my experience, and something that really shifted me too as I watched my process, and I kept going to that retreat every year. I started to develop a tremor, and my hands shake. And it frightened the heck out of me. It frightened the heck out of me. I thought, I can't paint anymore. What will people think? And you know, the worst part is, isn't it? The shame? Like, I felt there was a shame about it. I was ashamed of the fact. Now, this is something that my mother has, and it's hereditary, and my brother has it. And so we all have this tremor. And it's something I'm going to have to deal with, and I am dealing with. But what I want to tell you is there's a magical lesson in this, and some of you, I was talking to Anita here beforehand, some of you already learned this lesson. But when something happens to you that's a challenge, it's an opportunity for your spirit to grow. So I realized that I had developed a way of painting. I'm going to skip to the next slide. And validation that I am a painter. So I had to add some photos. Just, yes, I paint. So I wanted you to see this painting up here that I have, this large painting. I had developed a style of painting. Guess what? I developed it around the fact that I shook. I cannot paint straight lines. Well, unless I'm really calm and in a great mood. But you know, it's hard to paint them. But what I did is I took my brush and I would paint outward. I would paint outward and draw with a dragging technique. And you can see in that painting, I started using brayers and rollers, and I developed a look that is what I would call my creative DNA. Everybody in this room has creative DNA. Every one of you has a unique way of making art. That's what's so amazing. If you look around this room, everyone is dressed differently. You're all different people, and your art is always different. And so what I realized is that something that I thought was so frightening and embarrassing was a gift, because it forced me out of the box. Every other painter's just doing lines, and they're doing great straight lines, smooth lines, and I had to learn a different way of doing it. So if you look at this story, you realize not only did I hurt my back and it forced me out of the box, the computer, I have a tremor and it forced me out of the box. So I thought about this. How does our life affect who we are as artists? And so what I want you to process here is looking at yourself as an artist. How is who you are and the life that you've met affected you as an artist? So there's one more story I want to share with you. Is, as you can see, I do these geometric shapes. Maybe the bottom right corner. Different styles here. What I realized, I had a woman come and she saw my show and she said, "Oh, I love your work." And I said, "Well, thank you." And she said, "Your geometry is so interesting. You make it three-dimensional, but it's not right." I was like, "What? What do you mean it's not right?" She said, "It's not right. You know, when you think about three-dimensional, you have a light source, right? We all know this. You have a light source that hits an object, the shadow's cast on one side, and it should be consistent on all objects in the... guess what? Mine's not. Mine's not. So I want to tell you something about me that I realized with that experience, because I wish that was a better image of the geometrics. What I realized... So, when I turned 40, my gift to myself was LASIK. I did LASIK surgery. And for 10 glorious years, I had perfect eyesight. perfect. And guess what? I was -11. I was like the worst. In fact, after the surgery, the doctor goes, you were the worst patient I ever worked on. So I was like, what? So guess what? At 10 years, my left eye started going wonky. They did surgery, and I have really severe astigmatism. I see shadow. I don't see life like you. I see shadows. So when I look at a light source, if I close my eye, I see light, 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 light. I had this dawning realization, though. It changed the way I painted. And this woman noticed that I was a different person because of my life experiences. Isn't that amazing? So this challenge that I faced actually in a way was a gift because she loved my work. It's distinctive. That's what we all want, right? You want to be a distinctive artist. And so that's what happened. And so what I wanted to talk about here is all these situations in life, all these things that we consider a limitation are really wonderful gifts. They're gifts and opportunities. And so I wanted to move into this. Oh, I wanted to share this photo with you because some of you, I don't know if are any people in this room that came on the tour of my show? Because 10 of you came out. Yay! Hi, how you doing? They came out to see my show at the Eisman. It's still up there for one more day. Comes down on Sunday. And there they are in the right corner, and I had a blast. I took some of you around. We listened to the music. We talked about the paintings, and I loved it. What a fun time. And the group came up to me and talked to me how the paintings meant something for them. So isn't it interesting, right? Whatever you create artistically means something different to everybody, not just you. That's why I don't even tell people. They'll say, well, what did you mean when you did that? What do you feel? What do you feel when you see it? And there is no right or wrong, right? To creativity, there's no right or wrong. It's an expression, and it came out. So I just loved having your group there, and I just had to show you that slide. I don't know if you realize that. Great group of people. So you're an original, an individual, a masterpiece. Celebrate that. Don't let your uniqueness make you shy. Don't be someone other than the wonder you are. Every star is important to the sky. Isn't that a wonderful quote? So when we sit here today and we celebrate the people that are being recognized, I want you all to realize that you all should be celebrated. If you sit there and you are watching TV and you're doodling on a Kleenex, guess what? You're being creative. You're being an artist. Your spirit is alive. Your spirit is alive. And that is an incredible gift. I don't usually occasionally I'll enter stuff into contests. For me, it's the experience I have when I make the art. So everybody in this room, well, I assume most everybody here, unless you're friends of artists, did make art. Did everybody in this room make art, most of you? Yes? Yes. So I assume you had that experience. You won. You won. You got the prize. The prize was the moment. The prize was the moment. Okay. So if you're alive, you're a creative person. So I want to take this quote. Are you familiar with Elizabeth Gilbert? Her wonderful book. I want to change that. So one of the things that I loved, I don't know if the slide is in here. I missed that slide. Okay. When Brian told me the name of this, what are we doing here? This thing, right? He said, "Its spirit is ageless." And I was like, yeah, okay. And then I sat there and I was driving home. He treated me to a nice lunch here. And I was driving home and I was like, spirit is ageless. What does that mean? That means that the essence of you, the internal spiritual side of you, the part of you that is eternal, not the body's part of it, but the part beneath the body, that spiritual essence of you, it's ageless. It is ageless. There is no end to creativity. So I'd love to change this quote. I want to one up Elizabeth Gilbert. I want to say, if you're spiritual, which we all are, you're a creative person. In the very fact that you're a spiritual being, in the fact that everybody in this room has picked different clothes to wear, different emphasis, we cannot stop being creative. And I want to encourage you, because suddenly I realize, if my hands, and they very well will, because I see my mother, might get so bad and shake, that doesn't stop me from being a creative person. My spirit, I will draw with my feet, dang it. I will put brushes on my feet and walk. There is no end to that. And you see it out there, don't we? We see amazing people that are quadriplegic and they're painting with a toothbrush in their mouth. I want to encourage you to remember that. There is no end. And if something is limited, I had a wonderful woman in I present to many art groups, and she said to me, I had the same thing. I had a tremor. I used to do beautiful, delicate watercolors. She said, but you know what? I do collage now. And she said, I take out the scissors and I cut shapes and I do shapes. And she was so excited. Every limitation is actually a spirit is asking us to walk into a new identity, a new expression of who you are. Isn't that wonderful? Isn't that the most incredible gift that we have? So whatever is happening in your life, and we all have stuff. And as I get older, I'm dealing with, I know it, the packaging looks okay, but there's stuff going on. But everything that's going on is a gift, because in a way I can look at it and figure out a way through it. And it doesn't feel like a gift all the time. We know that. Being human isn't easy. But being spiritual is wonderful, isn't it? And so spirit is ageless. So I want you, while we do this ceremony, to just remember that. So I'm going to ask you to do one last thing, sort of a participatory thing. I don't want you to all stand up, but I want you to find a person next to you, if you can, and choose an A and a B. One of you will be an A, and one of you will be a B. So if you can reach across or here. Okay. Everybody found an A? All the A's, raise their hand. Okay, A's, you're going to start. So what you're going to do is I want you to affirm who you are with the person next to you. You're going to turn to your B, and that B is going to stand witness. They're going to witness who you are. You're going to turn to them and say, I am a spiritual artist. I want you to look them in the eye and say, I'm a spiritual artist. And they witness it. So, go ahead. You claim it, Ryan. Claim it. All right. All right. How did that feel, all you A's? How did that feel to have someone say they're a spiritual artist? How did you feel? How did you feel? Anybody? Good? A's? You're a B? A and B. So now, how did it feel to just stand witness for someone? Pretty neat, right? So we're going to flip the tables. I want all the B's to raise their hand. Raise their hand. Now when I count to 3, all at the same time, all the B's are going to turn to the A and say, I am a spiritual artist. So 1, 2, 3. Now notice if you can keep your eyes up. Notice if you can claim it, right? It's hard. Sometimes it's hard, isn't it? This is a long sentence, y'all. That is a long sentence. Okay, so how did that feel to all you B's? B's? Good? Wonderful. All right. So, remember the truth of who you are. I'm going to say that again. Remember the truth of who you are. You are a spiritual being in a human body. You're eternal. And thank you for having me here.